You requested the 2396, so let's have a go at it. Now what we're going to do here is do an introduction on the actual course itself. So we're going to have to do maybe 10 or so videos on this, but going through the outcomes one at a time with a bit on the actual assessments as well separately. A little similar to how we did the 2391 videos as well. So City and Guilds 2396, this is a lot of people are going for it, which is a really good thing. A lot of people think that it's too high level, or it's too far a step, and I hope that's wrong. I hope that's not true, and I think that maybe if they just get to understand more about how the qualification works and what's assessed, that maybe with some of this they can actually kind of feel more up to doing it. It's a worthwhile qualification, I believe. Alright. It is a level 4. Now, it became a level 4 when the QCF credit framework was introduced, which has now been replaced by the RFQ. Fundamentally, all it is the formula that you learnt in the 17th edition, and the formula that you learnt in the inspection and testing courses, combined and carried out again and again, really. That's the simplest way to explain it. You will have to obviously be able to plan a large project, which we'll introduce to in a second, and I think that's where a lot of people fall. They don't prepare for that properly. So about the course, this is the off-qual information. So the way it's laid out is there's 30 guided learning hours, and what that is time with a tutor, time in a training environment, receiving instruction, receiving information, and then overall 100 total qualification time, which is guided learning hours plus time which is given to prepare, to be assessed, to carry out the assignment, and you can see it's quite a large amount of time on top of that. There are 2 units, but they're actually the same. They're the design, the construction management, so we think about CDM regulations maybe, and the initial verification, which obviously is inspection and testing. Unit 401 is referring to the assignments, so there will be required outcomes of Unit 401, which will be used for the assignment activity. Unit 402, that's the written. Entry requirement, you have to be 18. It's in the City and Guilds book. It makes sense because you really have to have sufficient experience, and there's no way that I mean, even 18 really is a bit young if you'd have sufficient experience, but there's no way that someone who's still an apprentice would be considered for this, because there's just more responsibility on the design there. No entry requirements according to City and Guilds handbook, which is where I've taken this from, but it does strongly recommend that you have either the periodic inspection or the initial verification, or preferably both. It also recommends that you have the wine regulations training, so the 17th edition. If you have 15th edition or 16th edition and not 17th edition, again, as long as you're familiar with the 17th edition document, then that's probably fine. But you must be able to carry out the simple formula from the 17th edition. We're talking about permissible thermal withstand, adiabatics, cable calculations, IB, IN, IZ, IT, CA, CI, CG rating factors. You need to be able to carry them out and be familiar with them. We are going to remind you of them, but we're not going to train you on them. We'll use them the best that we can here. And with the inspection and testing side, the ZS calculation using obviously the external loop impedance and the R1 plus R2 value, respective full current. That's probably about it for those, but you're going to combine the formulas to create one long calculation route. So although it says these aren't entry requirements, I would say if you're not going to have those, then you're going to then you're going to have a lot of experience in design. With regards to recognition of prior learning, the college, the training centre, is not allowed to take that into account for this qualification. They could for the 239152, for example. They could look at previous experience, previous test work, previous reports, and they can actually shave off some of the required guided learning and some of the required assessment, and they can disclose it or declare it. But they can't do that here. So whatever experience you have to actually attempt both of the required assessments for the criteria to achieve this qualification. The actual units themselves, the assignment unit has been given 40 hours, unit 401. Okay, so this is the project, and I guess this is where a lot of people get a little bit nervous, and it's it is a lot of work. I've got some of my old paperwork from the one I did when I did the 239120 and the 2396 that I just did for fun, basically. But I've got all the pages of calculations that I did, which I then compiled onto a single spreadsheet to actually hand to the assessor. It's a lot of work, but it's a case of planning and controlling the work, breaking the circuits down. If you've not got much experience with that, then we'll try and help you on this. So you've got there outcome 1, understand the relationship with statutory non-statutory requirements, 1 question. Okay. 2, understand the electrical installations design, construction, commissioning, 3 questions. And can you notice there's no outcome 3? That's obviously just from the written assessment. 4 is the principles for the design. 5 is the factors that affect choices. And the verification is 6. Now this is an assignment, but there are questions. And that's because when you're issued with the assignment, you are also issued with a question paper with questions to answer as you do it. What you need to do is when you achieve the assignment, you get given a little pack which describes the scenario, it describes the building, etc. And what you need to do then is as you do the design, is record everything that every decision that you're making. So if you decide to select a specific type of luminaire, like an IP54 halogen or something, or a son fitting, you should then also go to source it. So you should look online or go to a wholesaler, find the right kind of item, and actually take a record of that into the assessment pack, so that the assessor can review the whole design that you've actually come up with. Similarly, to assist the assessor in your understanding of your design, there are these questions which are kind of buffers as you go through the assignment. But again, they're not a sat down timed exercise, they are during the period of the assignment of 40 hours. So it's not really much of a problem. The written assignment, or exam, it's a 3-hour written. I remember the first time I did one, I actually sat my exam. It was a 239120. I sat my exam the same night that the 239110 was being sat, which is inspection and testing. I was obviously there a bit earlier because it was 3-hour duration, and I used the full time. I ran out of paper. I was writing everything. I got a distinction with B, but pages was full. I used all of the time for 10 questions. You see, 3 hours for 10 questions. But what you need to remember is some of these questions will be a scenario, and it'll ask you to actually do quite a lengthy calculation with that scenario. Whilst other questions will be, let's say for example, question 2 will be 2A 1 2 3, 2B 1 2 3, and 2C. So that one question turns into 6 or 7 state questions or minor little questions. So it does get blown up, and that time does go. The benefit, though, and something that annoyed the guys doing their testing exam that night, is for the design course, you are allowed your resource information. So you're allowed the City and Guilds handbook or exam books, you're allowed the on-site guide, most importantly you're allowed the wine regulations and guidance notes 3, or any guidance notes, anything that is there in all relevant sources for the actual project. Now You can obviously get manufacturer's information, but I wouldn't go too far, because remember, any sources that you choose that aren't the common sources, like the regs, like the guidance note, the assessor will then have to obtain or review as well. In marking it, just makes it a bit of a pain. Alright, but those are the 2 units: a 3-hour written exam, not that hard, and a 40-hour project, which isn't hard, it's just hard to manage if you're not used to that kind of workload. You'll be issued with this project a drawing on A1 paper, and you should be offered some smaller versions for notes. I've still got some of my old ones here. This is 2013. This one. So let's see there, the project from 2013, 14, and actually I can't go into my project much with these videos, unfortunately, because my project, you can see this is the current project. This is okay for you to see because this is publicly available. The current project is a training center, and my project was also a training center, and so unfortunately I can't really use much of my old stuff, but we can make some scenarios up. What I mentioned here, publicly available, if you go to the City Guild's website and you put on the search for qualifications the 2396, if you then go to documents, which I think is one of the tabs, there's a section where you can download the handbook and you can download the 2 drawings. There's also another document which is password protected, which is this one, and that document obviously you're not able to view yet, but the drawings you can, and the handbook gives you all the information we're going to go through in these videos. These videos are really from the handbook with me explaining the bits in between. This pack though, this is what you'll be given on your assessment. This will have the specific content that you need to do your design. So what is the building's utilization, what's its occupancy, what's its construction, what's the fabric of the walls and the conditions of the floors and the roof, all these things that you need to know so you can determine the fixing methods and the wiring system and the access and the stuff. Same with the electrical supply, it will give you a ZE and a PFC in that pack, so you then use that to build your design on. You'll get all of that when you're issued with the assessment of the project. And then there's tasks A, B and C questions, which refer to the ones we've just covered. Right, I'm not going to go on to outcome 1 yet. What we'll do is I'm going to do a follow-up video to this, which will be out probably the next day, which will include outcome 1 and an introduction to outcome 2. In outcome 2, we're going to look at the actual design process, and we'll start thinking about formula. So what we'll do is we'll do outcome 1 and outcome 2, probably halfway through outcome 2 or maybe towards the end of outcome 2. I'll probably then do another video where we'll start doing a sample or a mock design with the formula. Okay, we need to keep it at a slow pace, because for those of you trying to actually take in the formula, you need to take it in bite-sized chunks, so at the end you can then use them. If you take it all in one hit, it'll just be a bit overwhelming. Anything else? I think that's enough for this one. This is just an introduction to the qualification and the video series that we're going to do on it. Another note, I will be doing a series on patch testing when I get, I'm trying to source a better patch tester. Alright, now I have a QTech, which I'll use, but I'm trying to source a better one. I've been delaying that one, and also the inspection testing videos. I can make some on bays that I've got, but I know you guys like it when I go onto site. At the moment, my whole workload is wearing shirts and shaking hands and doing consultancy. If I pick up any testing work, then I'll by all means record some on site, but right now I'm doing a lot of boring stuff, to be honest. If it gets too long, I will just crack out the testers on some rigs just to kind of complete that. I'll also do some some stuff on the desk here, some actual formula stuff to answer some of your comments. There's been a few comments about ZS and ZEs and R1 and R2s and other things to do there. So I'll do a bit on that as well, just to kind of give it a buffer. Alright guys, yeah, we'll leave that there, and I will see you probably tomorrow in another video. Cheers.